I would like to share just how sick these gang stalkers are. Some of you may find this content triggering. It includes references to body locations and flirtatious behavior by adolescents that I personally classify as sexual harassment. Although it is my belief that these adolescents have been coerced into this crude form of street theater, the observation I will share may be too sensitive for viewers and may not be suitable for younger audiences. The subject of this video is heavy. I take comfort in the laws in Canada that exist to protect children. I equally take comfort that our beloved God, Yahweh, pays special attention to the welfare of children as well. Here are 3 biblical verses that speak to God's special attention to children. Number 1, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it will be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. That's Matthew chapter 18, verse 6. Here's the second verse. The people of the tribe of Judah have done evil in my sight, says the Lord. They have built their high places to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my heart. That's Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 31. And finally, here's a third verse. Jesus, speaking to his disciples, said, whoever receives one of these little children in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. That's Luke 9, verses 46 to 48. The implication of these verses is that honoring and protecting a child is equivalent to receiving Christ himself. And receiving Christ, who is the way to God, is to receive God the Father. I am very, very angry and saddened at the exploitation of children and youth in gang stalking operations. It is one thing for adults to take part in criminal harassment, but it is an entirely sickening level of moral decay for teens, for adolescents, to be coerced. And yes, I use this word intentionally. From a child protection legal standpoint, the involvement of children in gang stalking street theater is only possible through coercion by adults. It is an entirely morbid level of moral decay for these handlers or overseers of criminal harassment to involve children. Personally, I think that these handlers don't have a sickness of the body or the brain. They have a sickness of the soul, a rotten sense of right and wrong, a rotten sense of what is acceptable and not acceptable. On May 7, 2025, at about 7:10 p.m., I walked into Champlain Square, located in Vancouver. I was about 5 to 7 meters away from the food court when a middle-aged Caucasian woman around 5'6" in height exited the store. She was with a young Caucasian girl between 5 and 7 years old. The girl was wearing a shirt that had a word printed on it, cappuccino, but the first 3 letters, CAP, were covered by the strap of her bag. What remained visible for all to see were PUCCI. The woman said something to the child as we got closer, and the girl responded with a question. "Every day?" she said. The woman looked at me and smirked as this was happening. PUCCI, every day? Covering certain letters on a shirt to create another word is a strategy that these, I'm going to call them demonic human agents, they do that on the regular. So about 5 minutes later, I'm inside the food court and I'm making my way toward the hallway. 2 Asian girls are standing next to the table closest to the hallway. They're between the ages 13 and 15. As I'm walking past them, one of them speaks loudly enough for me to hear. And she says this: "You seriously don't want me to associate my favorite drink with something like that? You get it?" It was clear to me that the scripts that these people were playing was trying to make me question myself. In other words, gaslight me. Gaslighting, self-doubt are fundamental cognitive processes that gang stalkers try to create in targeted individuals. They do that so that they can hide in plain sight, so that their crime can continue but not seen as a crime. They also engage in scripts that, for the most part, are beyond reasonable doubt. In other words, from a legal perspective, if you take just the words, just the question of these two Asian girls, and you take the performance of that older lady, you can't say that alone is harassment. The previous day, on May 6th, between 1:45 and 2:30 p.m., I was on a bus traveling from Commercial and Broadway to Kingsway and Victoria. This is roughly a ride of about 7 to 10 minutes. I was sitting in the bus facing the side of the window, while a biracial, possibly Asian, Caucasian, or perhaps only Asian, boy was seated a few feet to my left, facing the front window of the bus. He was approximately 5'7", 5'8" maybe, with short dark hair, and he was very active with his legs. He frequently and deliberately spread his legs very wide, doing what is known, at least to some, as manspreading. And as he would spread his leg, he would also turn his feet at 90 degrees angle away from his body. And then he would extend his feet toward me and repeatedly tap one or both feet. There was an adult sitting next to him on his right. And the fact that this youth was very active with his legs and spreading it and then put it back again, spreading it and moving his legs, it just felt out of place. It was very, very scripted. It was just not the type of behavior you would commonly see in a public space. This type of behavior is part of a common set of behaviors that gang stalkers act out almost every day in an attempt to make me feel nervous, make me feel edgy, anxious, or irritated. They do this particularly when we are at a bus stop or in the bus or anywhere that they can sit or stand relatively close to me for a certain amount of time so that they can do this routine. The set of behavior includes regularly tapping one or both feet, shaking their legs as if they're anxious, walking back and forth, like they'll be on the phone and they'll just walk back and forth in like a 2 meter, 3 meter, sometimes even shorter 1 meter span. At other times, this set of behavior includes regularly looking at me or toward me. So, for example, I remember I will be in the bus somewhere towards the back. This Caucasian lady was standing in the front, and every 10 to 30 seconds, she would just turn her head and look at me or look past me. She did this over and over and over again, and she hasn't been the only one to do something like that. I call this set of behaviors the agitation-inducing ritual. It is characterized by close, repeated, seemingly normal micro behaviors or gestures that easily blend into the public environment. To someone who isn't being targeted, who isn't being chronically harassed, Each act might appear isolated or coincidental because they just don't see the broader pattern stretched across different times and places. And this is by design. Gang stalking behaviors are designed to make it hard for onlookers to detect. Going back to describing this youth behavior, at one point he moaned sensually, and then that was followed with a very breathy yes. Let me say that again. He actually moaned sensually, and then that was followed by a breathy yes. He then made wiping motion, pretended to wipe something very close to the zipper of his pants. Roughly half a meter behind him to his left sat an Asian girl, and she was also facing the front window. She had a hat with the word YES, yes, followed by an exclamation mark printed in bold letters across the front of her hat. And she also kept turning her head toward me and smiling. I do not know this girl, and I have never seen her before. So to me, all this was very strange, very unusual, but I knew what was going on. The bus ride was 7 to 10 minutes long. It gave me sufficient time to second-guess myself, to try to deny what I was witnessing, to consider whether I was misinterpreting. But after watching this boy constantly men-spreading, entering my bubble with his legs, wiping his zippers after 2 suggestive moans and a breathy yes, and the girl's repeated glances and smiles at me, combined with a bold yes exclamation printed on her hat. After seeing all that, all these micro gestures, all these out-of-place behavior, it became impossible for me to ignore. Now, trust me, I had to call a spade even if I didn't want to call a spade. But to my dismay, this is not the first time I have been... It's so awkward to say sexually harassed by adolescents or by teens as a late 30s guy, but that's what it is. That's the script they were given to perform. It also happened last year, and it was way more explicit then. In one case last year, 2 Caucasian teens, perhaps 14 or 15 years of age, 1 girl, 1 boy, they were standing at the intersection of Nanaimo and 39th Avenue. It was in the evening, maybe around 10 p.m., and I was out for a walk because of the summer heat. As I walked on Nanaimo to cross 39th, these 2 stood on the other side of the road, bent over and touched their toes, and then thrust their rear ends toward me while looking back at me. Their motion was equivalent to subtle twerking. Just out of the blue. At night. Why are y'all even... Anyways. The other incident that took place last year with teens was not subtle at all. This was a black adolescent girl fully twerking at the most awkward places. I was in a bus leaving Joyce Collingwood Station. As the bus neared and stopped at Vanessa Avenue and Boundary Road, again, out of nowhere, an adolescent girl wearing shorts began fully twerking on the pavement in the view of heavy traffic and a bus filled with people. I just wanted to share with you these other scripts of teens being asked to perform sexual innuendos, just to give you a sense of the breadth and how long and how unfortunately creative they get to engage in these very crude, disgusting behaviors. Anyways, let's go back to what I was sharing that took place this year. I got off the bus at Victoria and Kingsway and began crossing Victoria heading east. An East Asian girl was also crossing the street. She was walking in the opposite direction that I was walking. She looked at me for a lengthy time and gave me a smile that was way more flirtatious than the girl on the bus. Street theater thrives in subtlety. It thrives on keywords spoken, intentional body movements, timing, and associations between different things. In this case, instead of a moan, instead of a breathy yes, or a hat with yes exclamation mark printed on it, the girl folded her arm across her torso in a way that made her chest more pronounced. This posture was on par with the overall theme of innuendo that started in the bus. Do you get it? You get it. Bring all of this together. I hope the authorities are listening to this. I do not take anything that I'm sharing lightly. This is very serious. In fact, I ask you to do a thorough digital forensic investigation. Check the cameras on the bus and around Kingsway and Victoria to identify these 3 teens, these 3 adolescents, and find out where they were before the incident, who they spoke to, where they went afterward, if they received text messages informing them when to start performing, and so on and so forth. I honestly don't believe that these youth were aware of the context and implications of what they were being instructed to do. It's possible their consent was influenced or coerced by an adult, someone who might have manipulated them, lied to them, or perhaps paid them to carry out what I witnessed. By being suggestive, flirtatious, they were put in a very dangerous situation. To the handlers who coordinated and coerced these adolescents to partake in this very crude act, you may have committed criminal offenses. Did you think about that? Well, number 1, engaging in behavior that contributes to the delinquency of youth can carry fines or imprisonment. By encouraging, persuading, or enabling a minor to engage in immoral, illegal, or harmful conduct, you are liable for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And that's verifiable in Section 172.1 of the Criminal Code. And if the act is sexual in nature, it may rise to more serious child exploitation charges. Number 2, sexual harassment can occur directly by the perpetrator or indirectly by having another person harass a victim. By having minors act as proxies to engage in intentionally suggestive actions intended to evoke sexual discomfort, this is what is called sexual harassment by proxy, or also called facilitated harassment. And as an adult who facilitated the behavior of these minors, you bear full legal responsibility for the outcome. Number 3, gang stalkers, beware. Because when 2 or more people coordinate their actions in a premeditated way to target and harass, even if each act on its own seems minor, this is conspiracy to commit a crime and participating in a criminal organization. Both of these are covered in the Criminal Code under Section 465 on conspiracy and 467 on participating in a criminal organization. Orchestrating minors to be involved in crime leads to very, very serious charges. For example, you could be found liable under child protection laws by using minors for sexual targeting, even if there was no physical contact. In addition, if this street theater was recorded, this could lead to a charge of child pornography. Also, if minors were groomed or used to harass me, you could be charged for sexual exploitation of a child. If you put the welfare of a child at risk as a result of their involvement in gang stalking, you could also be charged for endangering the welfare of a minor. And if any adult consented for their child to take part in this, you could be charged for failure to protect a minor from psychological harm and possibly lose custody over your child. These youth and I deserve to be protected, vindicated. We deserve justice. And the handlers, the adults that were manipulating, coercing these children, need to be held accountable by the fullest extent of the law. I remind you of Matthew 18:6, and I dedicate this to the stalkers, to the handlers. God does not play with his children. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it will be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Matthew 18, verse 6. You are in big trouble. It's one thing to gang stalk and only have adults do it, but it's a whole other type, a whole other depth of moral decay and, frankly, stupidity to involve minors. You are done. Just watch.